Everyone's using ChatGPT, your coworker, your team lead, and probably your manager too. And for a while, so was I. For everything, writing infrastructure as code, scripting videos, and troubleshooting Azure deployments. And then I stopped. I replaced it with Claude for all of my work coding, content creation, consulting, and everything else that goes in my business. And honestly, I don't think I'm going back. Hi, my name is Parveen Singh. I run a cloud consulting firm and I've been building on Azure for almost a decade. And this is Cloud with Singh. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please bump the subscribe button and come join my learning community. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly why I moved everything from ChatGPT to Claude. First of all, I'll show you the features inside Claude that makes it way more than a chatbot. Things like skills, custom commands, project memory, and a brand new remote control feature that just launched. I'll show you how all of these plug in into my actual Azure workflow, Bicep, Azure CLI, Entra, and real client troubleshooting. And if you stick around to the end, I'll be honest about what I lost in the switch to. So first of all, some context. Like most people, I started with ChatGPT, GPT 3.5 when it first came out, and GPT 4 the day it dropped. And look, I was genuinely impressed. I was using it to write PowerShell scripts, brainstorming video ideas, and troubleshooting client issues. For a while, it was the only tool I needed. But then I started trying Claude. I think it was around the Sonnet 3.5 era, and which I wasn't planning to switch. I just opened it for one task and then another and then another. And before I knew, I was barely opening ChatGPT at all. It just kind of happened naturally. I actually made a video a while ago about which AI models I daily use. I'll link it in the cards even then I said Claude has become my main tool. But I never really explained why. So that's what this video is. And it comes down to two main things. First, what Claude can actually do as a tool, not the model and not the benchmarks, the tool itself. And second, how all of these changed my Azure workflow specifically. Let me start with the tool. So the first thing to understand is I do not use Claude in my browser window. I mean, I can. Sometimes I do it for quick questions, but for real work, you have to use Claude Code or Claude Desktop application. Claude Code is a command line tool that runs right in your terminal. And here's the thing, ChatGPT, even with the code interpreter and codex, still feels like you're copying and pasting between chat window and your editor. You ask it a question and you get an answer. You copy it over and you tweak it. That loop gets exhausting on anything non-trivial. With Claude Code, it's already in your project. It sees your file, your structure, it reads your config, your bicep templates, and even your pipeline definitions. It understands full context of what you're building without you having to explain everything from scratch every time. And the context window is the big part of it. Claude holds about 200,000 tokens in context, which recently has increased to 1 million. That means I can point it to my entire repo and it reasons about dependency across files. ChatGPT starts to lose plot around 30 to 40,000 tokens. If you're working on anything larger than that, that difference is night and day. But Cloud Code is really just the foundation. What makes it a platform are things built on top of it. Now here's where it starts to feel like a completely different category of tool. Cloud Code has this concept called skills and commands. A skill is basically a reusable workflow that you teach Claude. You write a markdown file that describes what this skill should do, what files to read, what steps to follow, and what tools to use. And the Claude execute the whole thing from single command. Let me give you a real example. I have a skill called video script. I type one command, give it a topic, and Claude reads my writing style guide, research the topic on the website, and write a full script in my voice. It also generates YouTube descriptions with timestamps and save the whole thing in my Notion pipeline. It's one command, that's it. I have another one for LinkedIn. I type a specific command, it discovers trending topics, draft post in my LinkedIn voice, which is different from my YouTube voice, and queues them up for publishing. I have one for brainstorming content ideas, the one for creating demo environments, and one for drafting blog posts. And here's the thing, these aren't generic templates, they are my workflows. They know my brand, my channel, my name, my content pillars, and my audience. I set them up once and they just run. Try doing that with ChatGPT. You need custom GPTs, manual copy pasting between different tools, separate browser tabs for Notion and for Buffer and the linear. With Claude, I don't even leave my terminal. Alright, so this is the big one. Claude has a memory system and it works very different from ChatGPT's memory. These are called claude.md, a file that's a project-based memory directory. Basically, you can tell Claude how your project works, your convention, your preferences, your architecture design, and even your naming patterns. And it remembers all of that across every single conversation you have in that specific project. So when I open Claude Code in my content repo, it already knows my channel name, which is Cloud with Singh. It knows my Notion database IDs. It knows my writing style rule, which hook types I've recently used, so it doesn't repeat them. I don't re-explain any of that. It's just there every time I start a new session. Now, ChatGPT has a memory too, but it's more like remembering random facts about you, Like, I like Azure, I'm a consultant. That's helpful for sure. But Claude's memory is structured, it's project aware. It's not about remembering trivia about me, it's remembering how my entire system works, which is a big difference. Okay, so this is the part that really changed the game for me. MCP, Model Context Protocol. It's an open standard tool that let Claude connect to external tools through API. So my Claude is connected to Notion, my Linear, and my Buffer all the time. It can search any content, create new cards, update statuses, write full description directly in the Notion pages. It's even linked to my Buffer for social media posting, so I can draft LinkedIn posts right from my terminal and queue them up without me even opening the buffer. It's so interlinked into my file system that I can read and write project files directly with it. I use Linear for project management, and Claude can read my entire board. It can create new cards with right labels, with right project description, and link them to other cards as well. I'll describe what needs to happen, like create a card for Bicep module, refactor, and put it in the infrastructure project, and mark it as high priority. And Claude just goes and do all of that. I don't even open LinkedIn half of the time anymore. I just tell Claude what I need and check the board later on. ChatGPT has plugins and GPT actions, but honestly, it's not even close to level of the integration. With MCP, Claude isn't visiting your tool through any chunky plugins. It's living inside them. And this one is the brand new. Literally launched a few days ago, Claude now has remote control feature. You start a session in your terminal and you can pick it up from anywhere, your phone, your tablet, and the web app. Same conversation, same context, same files, and same MCP connections across the board. Think about what this means for a second. I can tell Claude to research a topic and draft a script and save it in my Notion. Then I close my laptop, go to lunch, and check on the progress from my phone. When I come back, my work is sitting there waiting for my review. And it all runs locally on your machine. Nothing moves to the cloud. The code stays on your computer. Claude just keep working in the background while you do something else. And that's not a chatbot. That's an autonomous assistant. Honestly, right there captures the gap between where ChatGPT is and where Claude Code is right now as a platform. Okay, now you understand the Claude as a tool. Let me show you what all of this looks like when you're actually working with Azure every single day. Because features are great, but what matters is what happens when you plug them into real work. The first thing I did is gave Claude access to my Azure CLI. And this is where it gets really powerful. Claude can run AZ command directly, reads the output, and reason about your actual live environment. Not a hypothetical environment, but actually your production Azure infrastructure. So I'll say something like, check my resource groups and tell me if anything looks off. Claude will run AZ group list and reads the output, and then it starts digging. It'll pull up the resources, check the NSGs, look at RBAC, whether diagnostics have been turned on or not, and then it will come back with actual specific recommendations. And here's what I didn't expect over time. Because of the memory I mentioned earlier, it learns your environment pattern. It knows which resource groups are production versus dev. It knows your naming convention and it starts flagging things proactively. Things like, hey, the storage account has a public blob access enabled. Your other storage accounts in this resource group, all of them have disabled it. Is that intentional? That's not me asking a question and still getting an answer. That's a tool reading my live infra and surfacing things that I may have missed. ChatGPT can't do that because it just can't run commands against your environment. It's stuck in your browser tab. And then there's Bicep. I write all of my infra's code in Bicep now, and Claude has become the massive part of that workflow. When I ask ChatGPT for Bicep template, I get something that compiles. It works, but it's very flat and everything crammed into one single file. It's kind of Bicep you would write in tutorials, but not in a production environment. When I ask Claude for the same thing, it structures the code properly, separate modules, parameterized values, outputs, proper naming convention, and it matches Microsoft's best practices. It writes Bicep like someone who's actually going to maintain it for 6 months from now. But here's the real power. Because Claude can read my existing Bicep files and run AZ commands against my live environment, I can say something like compare what's deployed right now to what's in my Bicep template and tell me the drift. And it reads the template, queries the deployment resources, and tells me exactly what's out of sync, what I added manually in the portal, and what somebody changed something without updating the code. That would used to take me hours of manual cross-referencing. Now it takes about 2 minutes. And the last piece of Azure workflow is troubleshooting and architecture planning. I had a client deployments failing on ARM template a few weeks ago. The error message was basically useless. Some generic deployment failed with correlation ID, super helpful, right? So I pasted the full template into Claude and it read the whole thing completely end to end, not just first few lines. It identified the dependency chains issue, which was the virtual network and subnet resource, and it told me exactly which line to fix. I've done the same thing with Entra ID. I'm planning conditional access policy for a client. I describe the requirements, and Claude maps out which policy I need exactly end to end. Not just that, it will also find what might be conflicting with existing policy that's already in place. I should set for break and glass account, stuff like that, or it doesn't just give me syntax. Thinks about all the edge cases. And because of that, the 200k or 1 million token now, it can give me the full picture. The Bicep template, the policy JSON, the current Azure CLI output, showing what's already deployed all at once. It reasons across all of that together. That is something ChatGPT genuinely cannot do at scale. Okay, so if you're thinking about making this move, here's what I learned from doing it. Number one is don't switch cold. Run both tools for 2 to 3 weeks. Give the same task to both and just see which output you actually reach for. After about a week, your pattern will be obvious. The number two is rebuild your whole workflow. Don't try to transfer them. Cloud Project serves a similar purpose as custom GPTs, but they were completely different. And honestly, they are more powerful. And a lot of my ChatGPT prompts were workarounds for its limitation. With Claude, I don't need half of them anymore. And number three is accept that setup time is real. Claude Code, MCP servers, project memory, skills, getting all of that dialed in took me a couple of hours. It's not plug and play from day one, but once it's set up, it's genuinely not even close. The ROI on that pay for itself within first week. And number four is start with the most painful workflow first. Don't try to migrate everything from day one. Pick one thing that frustrates you most. For me, it was the Bicep templating and Azure CLI troubleshooting. You will get an immediate win, and that momentum carries you through the rest. And there's one more thing, the company behind the tool matters to me. Anthropic has been very consistent about where they draw the line on how technology gets used. And when I'm putting a client code and a business workflow through a tool every single day, that kind of consistency gives me the confidence. I'll leave it at that. So to recap, Claude Code as a skill, CLI, custom command, project memory, MCP integration with Notion, linear and buffer, and the remote control. Those features make it a platform, not just a chatbot. And when you plug all of that into Azure workflow, writing Bicep, Azure CLI reading your live environment, Entra ID architecture, and real client troubleshooting, it changes how you work every single day, and that is why I switched. Now I'm working on a full demo where I use Claude Code for Azure engineering from start to finish. Bicep module, Azure CLI environment audit, and the works behind it. If that sounds interesting, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Let me know in the comment if you're using Claude, ChatGPT, or any other tool. And if you already made the switch, what was one thing that tipped you over? I'm genuinely curious. Alright, I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious and keep building.